is the San Diego Sports Junkies, a show for fans by the fans, with Josh Taylor, Justin Smead, and Jason Eidsmoe. We're talking Padres, Chargers, and Aztec sports.
Got to hit it to the right place. And he hits it out to center. Right center. Blackman's got a long way to go. He's still going.
Off the wall.
And it is off the wall. It takes a funny hop. Kemp is rounding second. He's heading to third. And Matt Kemp into third base with a triple and the first cycle in the history of the San Diego Padres.
He will hand it off. Tomlinson plows his way towards the goal line. LaDainian Tomlinson, one step closer to football immortality. Tomlinson has tied the single season record. And the handoff to Tomlinson. Left side, and he will gallop into the end zone. Charger fans are witnesses to history.
Pope thought about it. Now steps up. And the freshman hits the jumper at the buzzer.
Well, this kid is some prospect. Big time length, big time game.
Pope straight away three. Count it. Malik Pope. Pope off classic goal. On the other end, Joel doesn't miss that one. Shepard alley-oop to Pope. He got up there. Oh, wow.
It's time to let your voice be heard.
All right, it's Wednesday at 7 o'clock. That means, of course, it's time for the San Diego Sports Junkies. It's an interesting time of the year because the season...
It's the end of the year.
Yes, the Charger season has come to a merciful end for all of us. And we have to talk about something that I did not want to talk about, to be honest with you. I was one of the two people, I think, on Earth that didn't think that the problems were because of McCoy, and I kind of wanted to see the Chargers keep McCoy. But we'll talk about that later. My name is Jason Eidsmoe. I'm in here. We got Jake Hefner. Jake, how's it going, man?
Doing great, man. How are you?
I'm doing great, and we got Mike Maciejewski, of course, who is Hal's doppelganger or Hal's twin or Hal's I don't even want to say evil twin because I think Hal's the evil twin and Mike might be the good twin. Mikey, how we doing, man?
I'm good, man. And remember, it's Dirty Mike and the Boys, you know? Sports Junkie. That's my buddy Larry Joe will say. I love that name, man. Dirty Mike and the Boys.
Dirty Mike and the Boys. Well, you know what? You deserve to actually have the headline, too, for the show because, like you've pointed out many times, and it hurts to say, but if we rewind the tape and we listen to a lot of the predictions that you made before the season started, you were right on a lot of stuff, Mike, and it pains me to say that, but I do have to give you props.
It pains me too. It pains me too to be a realist, but it took you a while.
Well, it's interesting. I want to see how much of a realist you are when we do flip over to Aztecs talk.
Always a realist, Jason. Always.
But we'll be talking about that later on, of course. Let's do what we usually do on Wednesday. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time with it. The Chargers laid a complete egg against the Chiefs. What was one of the strong points of the team this year was really, really poor, and that was the defense. The defense looked terrible. The defense couldn't stop them. I'm trying to remember. I remember at the very end when the Chargers tried to block the punt, and when the game was just about over anyways, that might have been the first time the Chiefs punted all day. Do you remember them punting before that, Jake, or was that their first time?
That was their only punt return that they had all season, and of course you save it till the last week to give something like that up.
Yeah.
So you can't be completely perfect when you're talking about the Chargers as far as not letting anything through. Definitely you have to let them all have some on the Chargers for a 2016 season the way it was.
Yeah, on that punt return, he caught the ball at the 5. It almost looked like, now, first of all, our special teams have been atrocious this year. They just have been bad from the kicking, from the punting, from the everything. From the returns, it almost looked like the Chargers thought, not that he looked like he did. I think they assumed that he called a fair catch because they just kind of gathered around him and stood around. Is that the way you saw it too?
I saw the exact same thing. I can't remember who it was that was on the right side of Hill when he caught the ball, but he basically just came to a standstill. And it was just like it was off to the races for Hill at that point because I think everybody believed that he called a fair catch, and everybody just stopped. And it was like, okay, the play is over. Oh, no, it's not over, and now it's too late. That was exactly the way I saw it, especially when I was watching the replays.
How about you, Mikey? Is that the way it looked to you? Did you even? Well, first of all, I don't even know if everybody even watched the game anymore because it was, it was all said and done. I watched the game because I watch all 16 precious games. Did you see the game, and did you see the same thing that we did on that punt return?
I saw part of the game, Jason. I did see the highlights. It was shocking just because I didn't see him make a motion like he was going to fair catch it. I just looked. They assumed that he was going to catch it. I mean, inside the 5 or at the 5. And it's funny. It's really interesting. And I know every week we talk about how bad the special team was, but the crazy thing is, Jason, is the special team is actually better this year than it was last year, in my opinion. So it was terrible, but it was better. So I'm just sitting there like, we're making progress, boys. We're making progress.
I actually agree with you. Unfortunately, I do think that they were better. They just weren't good. Last year they were horrible, and this year they were bad. So that is improvement over that. Another person, somebody that I was really, really high on, and then I was really, really pissed off at for a long time, but I thought he actually finished the season relatively strong, and that was Drew Kaiser. Maybe not strong, but he certainly wasn't a problem, the last, let's say, 4 games of the season, Was he booming every single punt? No, but I actually saw return men taking a few steps back. I didn't see him shanking any. I didn't see any 30-yard punts anymore. Do you guys agree? Do you think that he at least finished the season on a high note, or at least on a more solid footing than he was towards the beginning of the season? We'll start with you, Jake.
Oh, well, after he was taken off of holder duties for field goals, I think the arrow started pointing up for him for sure.
Yeah.
After that, he had a couple punts that were just, it reminded you why the Chargers actually took him where they took him in last year's draft. There were some ridiculous distant punts that he was able to kick there from the midway point of the season on. I think he had maybe about 3 or 4 that went that good a distance. But a majority of the time, it was just at the worst possible times, too, when he would decide to just shank, 30-yard punts that ultimately put the other team in good field position for them to drive down and score. But again, we have to always, we don't hold kickers and punters in the most esteemed, conversations. We just expect them to go out there and they have one job to do, and we expect them to do that and on a consistent basis every year. Yeah. For Josh Lambo, obviously, being his second year, he still needs some things to improve upon. But for Kaiser being a 6th-round selection and a rookie at that, I believe that he is ultimately going to get better. And I don't believe that the Chargers made a mistake in giving up Mike Cyphers for the $3 million hit that they had. I think it was still the right move. We just still have to remember that he is a rookie. Now, I'm not giving him 100% passes on everything. It's unfortunate the struggles that he had at the worst possible time. But you can only get better from here, in my estimation, when you're talking about the punter position.
Yeah, and we're gonna break down all the positions in future shows. We're gonna take each show and we're gonna dedicate it to each position. So I don't want to break down each one too much, but I do have to ask Mikey, because you did bring up Josh Lambo, Jake. How many field goals this year did Josh Lambo have over 50 yards, Mikey? Can you remind us, please?
0, guys.
That's 0. Right. That's right, 0, and that's completely unacceptable from your kicker, and we'll talk about that also. But let's move on to the elephant in the room. Of course, that's Mike McCoy was fired. Nobody was surprised. I had a little, I'll be honest with you, I had a little twinge of hope, thinking maybe they're gonna bring him back. But ultimately, with 99% of the fan base just sick of him, I don't think there's any way that Dean could have moved forward and held on to him. So he did have to let him go. And the second he fired him, I moved on from, I think that we should keep him, to let's decide who the next coach should be. I totally shifted my focus. If you guys remember, when we were talking last week, a lot of the guys that you guys brought up, I didn't like any of them. Well, that's just because I didn't want anybody to be replacing McCoy. So I had to move on from that. I actually, before we get into the other coaches, I do want to talk to you about some criticisms I have of the way McCoy ran the team this year. Now that he's gone, I can. It just seemed like it was low hanging fruit, and it just seemed like it was just piling on. but I did talk about it a little bit, and I don't know if you guys agree with me or not. I think he did a very, very poor job overall game planning, which is really easy to say because, coaches spend, 16 hours a day game planning, and I think about it for maybe 5 minutes a day. But I think that, that it makes me qualified to tell him he's doing a poor job. But ultimately, we did have a defense this year that was getting a lot of turnovers. We had a defense that was playing pretty well up until that, the last couple games. If you remember, that's kind of the way the Broncos were last year. They had a defense that was playing really well and getting turnovers and an offense that couldn't move the ball, and they got super, super conservative. And they basically said, let's let our defense do their job and let's take advantage of opportunities we get. The Chargers, I think, maybe McCoy's ego was a little bit too big because he's an offensive-minded coach, and maybe he just thought, no, we can figure this out and we can get our offense going. And that's one of the major criticisms I have of him this year is I thought that he didn't make the offense conservative enough to play on our strength, which was our defense, and play on our strength, which was the turnovers. Our defense got us some really, really good opportunities to score, and all we really did was gave away the ball and gave the other team opportunities. I'll start with you, Mikey. Do you agree with that criticism? Do you think that was one of his? I know he had a lot of problems. I know there's a lot of things you didn't like about him, but do you agree with that criticism?
Well, we talked about his in-game managing was poor.
I'm not talking about in-game though. I'm talking about actual game planning.
Yeah. Again, I don't know. Again, you know me and you know where I stand. I don't know how much of that was his fault. I don't know. I tend to believe that Philip Rivers changed plays up the line, and so that's where. And because again he has that gunslinger mentality, and I can't prove it. We can't prove either way.
You're right.
But like I said, I mean, if he came into every game thinking we're going to throw 40 times a game and we're going to run the ball 20 times a game, then he should have been fired a year ago. Because I mean, this team, you need a balance, and we know it. I mean, it was voted by the players. Melvin Gordon was the MVP of this offense.
Yep. Yeah.
And so again, I feel like. The play calling, it was too. What's opposite conservative?
Radical.
Radical, fine. Again, we gave up the ball way too many times, and you're right, put the defense in bad position. So we'll never know. But again, it just seemed if that was the case, where you felt that you had to throw the ball so much, and not run what I think is your best player this year, then that's just bad coaching, and anybody could figure that out, except Mike McCoy.
Do you put that on McCoy, or do you put that on Rivers making calls at the line there, Jake?
I think it's a variety of different things, honestly. I mean, I'll agree with you for the game planning aspects, but I think more of what McCoy's downfall was that really killed him was when it came to halftime adjustments. And I know that you're saying don't do anything when it comes to in-game coaching. I think that's really what was the downfall of him. Because if you look at the stats, I agree with Mikey for the fact that if you look at who's the best offensive player for this team, it was Melvin Gordon. You look at the stats, you compare that to what he was last year, it was an incredible comeback for him. And you definitely saw the growth in a running back. But all the good stats that we saw from Melvin Gordon throughout the year, where was your rushing attack ranked in the league? Now, before this season, it was dead last in the league. I think maybe 31st. Mm-hmm. This year, it was 26th. Even with 94.4 yards rushing per game, it was still 26th in the league, which still tells me, and we saw this especially in the second half of the year, that the offensive line is a complete mess. Yeah. It's still, which I think this went into account in some of the decisions that Mike McCoy or Philip Rivers himself felt that you didn't have an opportunity to get balance. Even as good as Melvin Gordon's touchdown stats were, he still only averaged 3.9 yards per carry. So there was an uneasiness of the fact that, you couldn't have balance. And on the other side of the ball, defensively, you were 29th in the league in the points that you gave up at 26.4. So the game got away from you. You never had really an opportunity to have balance or run the ball. So Philip Rivers was essentially forced into being a gunslinger and having to throw in order to play catch-up, because defensively, it seemed like to me throughout the entire season, whenever the offense would do something positive, whenever they'd score, the very next possession for the opposing team, the defense would ultimately give up points. And it was just like a complete wash. And it was still either a shootout or a game that the Chargers had to ultimately play catch-up in. So I just think there was a lot of things that really came into account of why the Chargers have the record that they have had over the last couple of years. But you look at divisionally, you've only had 3 divisional wins in the last,
Yeah.
3. I mean, that's horrible.
That's what Justin's all about too. That's what upsets him so much.
And that ultimately is bestowed upon the head coach, because they talk about all the time about how important the division is and winning your division first. That's how you get into the playoffs. And that's 100% true. But when you know this for so long and you come out and you put up those type of numbers, then there's nothing that you can do to escape the accountability of the head coach in that factor.
Can I add really quick? Sorry. Can I just add that, Jake brought up some great numbers right there. And, also want to add that the Chargers were 22nd in rushing attempts. So they weren't far off from that 26 finishing yards per game. So, again, that's just some to give some clarity and some perspective on where they finished and where they were in attempts this year.
Well, I agree with you, Mikey, in the sense that I just think that they were too. I keep using the word aggressive. I think that they could have done a little bit more running. Now, like Jake said, though, they weren't a powerhouse out there. They weren't out there just getting yards at will. They just were not that type of a rushing offense. But I also think that they did not dedicate enough of their time and enough of their effort. And one thing we'll do, remember, Jake, there, you're right. He was having to come back, but he wasn't having to come back at halftime. We had the lead at halftime a lot, and we could have come into those second halves of those games, and we could have reestablished the run, and we could have maybe let our defense hold on to the ball. Instead, we talked about all these times our defense gave up the game, but a lot of times, our defense has spent a lot of time on the field. By the time we get to the end of the game, they're just flat out tired. Our offense would go, our defense would go out there. They'd play a series. Our offense would go out there, turn the ball over deep in territory. And how many times do we see our defense come out there and hold them to a field goal or something? They did that a lot. And I think if we're going overall defense scoring, I don't think that's really fair to our defense, because they gave up a lot of points that weren't really their fault. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with that. I mean, nobody can take away from the 21 interceptions that Phillip Rivers threw. I mean, he knows it.
Except the defense.
It's completely unacceptable. Never before, though, have I seen such a discrepancy in the stats when you talk about a team that is tied for first place in overall turnovers defensively, yet leads the league in offensive giveaways, bringing your overall turnover differential to -7. I've never seen a disparity like that. Yeah. It's ridiculous. So again, there are a lot of things that you could say just for certain situations. It was just totally a helter-skelter season for this team in so many different situations. But you brought it up. A lot of the times that the Chargers went into halftime, they had a lead. And ultimately, you blew that lead, and you went away from certain things that were working in the first half. I mean, how many times have we seen this team in the first drive of the game, or at least the first half, rather, look like they're unstoppable and they can move the ball at will? Yep. And then something happens in the second half where it just looks like a team that doesn't even be deserved to play on Sundays. So that's how helter-skelter this entire season has been. And we could spend weeks and weeks and weeks whittling down to the smallest detail about if you took all 16 games of the season and broke down what was the difference maker in each one of them. It would take us a long time to figure out that bounce of the ball differently here, made field goal opportunity, and this certain, you take away a turnover in this area. We could go on it all day. But there are so many different areas, both offensively and defensively. I think that's weak in this team. And we haven't even gotten to the injuries yet. And I won't talk about the injuries because I don't believe that that's an overall factor when you talk about how this team has played, because it still was ultimately the same result with Mike McCoy at the helm.
Yeah, and ultimately with all those injuries, I use the injury excuse a lot this year, and I'm going to stick to that. But like we did say, they had the lead at half for a lot of these games, so it's not like they weren't able to score, and maybe I can come around a little bit. We'll have to see how the next coach does, but maybe I can come around to one of the things that Mikey's been saying, and that's the halftime adjustments, because for some reason they just weren't able, whether the players weren't able to do it, maybe the players didn't have anything left in the second half, for whatever reason, it was always a different team, especially in that fourth quarter. We would see an offensive line that actually played pretty decent, and then in the fourth quarter, it's like they couldn't pick up a blitz, they couldn't block, they couldn't do anything. We'd see an offense that moved the ball pretty much all game long to they can't even get one first down in the fourth quarter. You know, we see a defense that has been playing so well and stopping the run and stopping the pass to not being able to stop anything in the fourth quarter. And I don't know if that's a tired thing. I don't know if that's an adjustment thing, but hopefully that all gets changed. And let's move forward coach-wise. Jake, go ahead and give us a list of the coaches you've heard so far that are possibilities on the Chargers' radar.
Well, if we go down the list, obviously the newest one, I think the announcement either came, late yesterday. Sean McDermott, defensive coordinator of Carolina Panthers. You have the name head coach that I was waiting for, Mike Smith, who was a longtime head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. You've got Mike Patricia, who's the big name that a lot of people have liked, defensive coordinator for the New England Patriots, been over there for a while now. You got Terrell Austin, defensive coordinator out of Detroit. Who else am I missing?
Who's the special teams guy?
That's right, Dave Tubb, the special teams coordinator for Kansas City Chiefs. And then I know I'm missing another one in here. Vance Joseph, defensive coordinator of the Miami Dolphins.
Of those guys, who's the guy that you're hoping for?
I don't really think I can say one is catching my eye, but I could probably whittle it down to my two favorites. If I've had to pick two, I would probably say it's either Mike Smith or it's Dave Tubb, for sure.
Okay, well, Mike Smith fits the type of coach you were looking for, and that is the guy who didn't, although he had some success, but ultimately got fired, went back to becoming a coordinator, and has a chance to kind of try it again. Mikey, of those guys on the list, who are you most excited about?
Again, I'm gonna preface this by saying, Jake, I've told you guys before, Jake turned my mind around this. I know Jake wasn't here last week, and my head was on Jim Schwartz because he fit the profile that Jake had given us. And I think Mike Smith fits perfectly. I looked at Mike Smith. I looked at his coaching. I was studying up on him. He fits the Jack Del Rio type. He fits the Andy Reid type in the West, where he had success for sustained 5 years. 5 years, twice won NFL head coach of the year by different organizations, and then he had 2 bad years and he was canned. I think he could be that guy. I worry about retreads. I'm not a fan of retreads, but Jake got me thinking. Maybe they learned something from the first time, and I think Mike Smith just fell with some bad. His defense lost some players, and it really affected his overall performance. And the following year, they ended up drafting like 3 defensive players in the first 3 rounds, and sort of a quick turnaround to where they are now. So. I like Mike Smith. That's my choice. Again, I don't think as a Chargers you can go with another new guy. I think you need somebody who has experience running a team. I just can't see Telesco with another new guy. He needs a veteran presence. So I'm going Mike Smith.
Hey, I know you used the name, you floated the name Jim Schwartz, Jake, and ever since that's kind of been the number one guy on my radar, but I haven't even heard him mentioned at all. Has he interviewing or has he been talked to or anything about head coaching jobs?
I think that was Mikey actually that had mentioned Jim Schwartz. But as far as I heard today was that the Lions have every expectation of him coming back no matter what happens in their playoff appearance this weekend, win or lose. They expect Schwartz to be back with the organization.
That'd be interesting because that's kind of the guy I was kind of thinking of. Mike Smith, I was trying to think about it. I didn't have enough time to look. I just remember watching the Atlanta Falcons Hard Knocks series.
That was the worst possible time you could be referencing this right now.
I did not like Mike Smith. I did not like him. For some reason as a coach, and I don't know why. Maybe he. I don't know what it was about him. I don't know what it was.
Can I actually? I just actually looked into that, Jason, because I knew that might come up today.
Okay.
And so I was reading about how he was like, I guess he was really, really tough on his team at that time, because he was having issues with just effort with some of the guys in camp. So maybe that was it. He came off looking really stern and really disciplinarian. But again, we talked about this. We need a disciplinarian.
Yeah, maybe that's what we need. Maybe that's what we need, and maybe that's maybe I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that I look at him and he kind of looks like Steve Martin, so I have a hard time seeing him as a coach. I don't know what it is, and the only thing I remember from him in Hard Knocks was him sitting in his office in a pair of shorts, wearing those old man strap-on sandals, and I just couldn't get past that. I don't know why.
Never mind. Don't want him. Don't want him.
That was it. I don't know why.
I'm picking up my phone now too. I didn't know that. So we're going to go from the visor to old man sandals.
Yeah. I don't know what it was, but
with socks.
Yes.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. No, it's the old man sandals that have like 72 different straps on them, and I don't know. That's just I just remember that. I sitting with his leg crossed like a girl wearing those sandals, and I just haven't been able to get that shot out of my mind. That's the only thing I remember from that. Ultimately, whoever the Chargers bring in a head coach, coming from a defensive perspective, I think is a good idea for a couple reasons. Number one, we've tried the offensive side of the ball and it hasn't really worked. Number two, hopefully they'll keep Ken Wisenhunt, because as upset as I was with the offense, and people question play calling. I'm not a big fan of questioning play calling, but people question that. I think that it had a lot to do with what he was working with and with the overall game plan. I think Ken Wisenhunt is a good offensive coordinator, and I think if you're going to bring a defensive-minded coach, you need to have yourself a really strong offensive coordinator, and we already have one in-house. Do you agree with that assessment, Mike?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. I don't see an offensive coordinator you can bring up here right now that I would prefer to Wisenhunt. So, but definitely, like I said, going to D coach is where I'm at. I think you need to switch that up and focus on this young defense that's turning out to be really good.
Another thing, I had listened on Mike and Mike this morning. They were talking about, well, first of all, let's talk about first-time coaches. Matt Patricia is a guy that would be a first-time coach. Most of those guys that you listed are guys that would be first-time coaches. I don't like retreads, like Mikey said. However, a guy with his second head coaching job, I'm actually a big fan of. I think that he gets a chance to learn from his mistakes. Jake, what are your thoughts if they were to bring in another guy like Matt Patricia, or somebody who's never had a head coaching job before? Are you okay with that, or do you want to go a different direction?
There is something underlying here that actually I read today that I was trying to figure that out myself. Before Mike Smith was announced, why is it that not only is it the same coaches that virtually every other team is going to be interviewing. That's basically the crop that you have this year. So, of course, you're going to do your due diligence. But at the same time, a majority of these coaches are more suited and more familiar with the 4-3 defense rather than the 3-4, which kind of perked my ears up. And this I read today from an article from Bolts from the Blue. It was very, very intriguing. Just as far as, is this going to be, whoever it is that it gets brought in here, is there going to be a defensive shift? Even if you do end up retaining Pagano, because we know that he can run both the 3-4, 4-3, he's familiar with the hybrid system, but is this going to be something that you're ultimately going to shift for that? And with the Chargers personnel that they technically have, size-wise, they are better suited for a 4-3 defense. So I thought that was very intriguing. But again, it's going to come down to what is the coach's mentality, that they're ultimately, is it going to be an overall right fit? There's no way that we can predict sitting here today, whenever the coach is hired next year, who knows if a first-time head coach or if a, person with more NFL experience is ultimately going to be the right fit, because you've seen those type of people have success. Bill Belichick, Pete Carroll, for those, second time around head coaches. I think we can all agree that Josh McDaniels, for his second stint that he gets as a head coach, he's going to be much better than what he was in Denver for his first time around.
Yeah.
But then you have cases like Smith, who got fired from Chicago, then went to Tampa Bay, and then did an even worse job in the short stint that he was there. And then sometimes you actually hit a home run on a first-time head coach, which we believe that we did with Mike McCoy in his first year. And, it seemed like a completely different attitude from Norv Turner when you listen to his first press conference, then ultimately making it into the playoffs that year. And then we see where that ultimately led to. So there's really no telling what it could be. But again, it's going to be up to what is the best fit for the organization. But from my opinion, and it sounds like your guys' too, we're on the same fit as far as it being a, more experienced head coach.
Right. Not like a guy like Jeff Fisher, though, who's just been around the league. I'm not interested in something like that.
No, and you don't want to have another Norv Turner situation either. I mean, Norv has proven, or even a Wade Phillips situation.
Yeah, that's another one. Yeah,
we know that both Norv Turner and Wade Phillips are great coordinators in their own respective, offensive and defensively, but they are not head coaches, and we saw that.
We got SoCal Trav in the chat room, and he's of the opinion that they should move on and they should fire every single coordinator and start fresh.
I'm so glad you brought it up.
And then the next thing I want to read what he wrote. Hopefully, I can still find it here. He says, we need someone from an organization who has a winning tradition. Oh, hold on, it moved here. He keeps typing stuff in. Stop typing, Travis. It makes it move, and I can't read it. See, it went away. I'm trying to give you props here, and you keep typing stuff. Basically, he says I can't bring it back up now. He typed something and it went away. Ultimately, he says we need to bring somebody who gets fired up and let me see here. I'm gonna try one more time. See, I can't get it, damn it. Ultimately, somebody who's going to get fired up, somebody who's going to get in their face when they make mistakes, and he sees that as being Matt Patricia. Now, a couple things. First of all, I want to see what your guys' thoughts are on just cleaning house and starting fresh from everywhere. And the second thing, I have not seen every single Patriots game. However, I have only seen Matt Patricia actually get fired up one time. Anytime I've ever, he always just looks like he's in deep thought, which is fine. That's no problem. But he does not look like the fired up, get in your face, yelling, screaming type of guy. I could be wrong, so you guys tell me if you've seen different from him. But I haven't seen that from him yet, so I'm not sure that's the type of coach he's going to be. And then we'll also address the cleaning house, and if we want to bring everybody else in, go ahead and start with you, Mikey. Have you seen Patricia do that, or is he that type of a guy?
No, I've never seen him. He seems like a very calm guy. Like I said, I think once, I think I remember the moment when it happened. I think I saw highlights of that as well. But no, he seems like a very even-keeled guy. And I think, for the most part, not most guys, that's kind of following the Belichick demeanor and just kind of being, pretty calm for most part.
Okay. I'm going to cut you off here because Travis just retyped it so I can read what he said exactly. He said, we need someone from an organization who has a winning tradition. That I'll agree with. They do have a winning tradition. The Pats are an organization that wins. Patricia is a pit bull who will kick your ass if you don't man up. That's the part that I was interested in because I've never seen that from him. Like I said, I've never seen all of his all of their games, but he has not come across as a guy like that to me. Okay, continue, Mike. Sorry.
Oh, well, actually, now that you said, I can kind of clarify. I can't remember who was on the radio the other day. I just happened to be listening to local radio, and it was someone who had played for the Pats or coached for the Patriots, and they asked him about Matt Patricia, and they kind of actually said he's more of a casual, has like a dual personality where he can kind of like be a player's coach, but also at the same time he can kind of be a disciplinarian. So he's not in one extreme or another. He's pretty moderate in the middle kind of guy. But again, I just want to also touch upon his point about coming from winning tradition. That means nothing. Look at Eric Mangini, Romeo Crennel, Charlie West. Means nothing. Absolutely nothing. So you can't. I mean, I talked about this with a friend the other day. I mean, there's so many guys that we want to talk about coaching trees and how successful they are. And there's some guys like Walsh. What's his first name? From the Niners, Bill Walsh.
Bill Walsh.
Yeah, he had an amazing tree.
Right.
But Bill Belichick's tree is not that great.
Nope.
It's got some good college guys. I believe Saban was in there, Kirk Ferentz, and some guys like that. But it's got big major bombs. I mean, Mangini. I mean, it was Mangenius. I mean, this guy was supposed to be a no miss coordinator. This guy was like the safest thing because he was a genius, and that didn't end up. working too well. So, yeah, I mean, there's no surefire thing. Takes me back to what Jake says. We don't know. I was going through a list of guys who are first-time head coaches that have won a Super Bowl. You're looking at Mike Tomlin, Mike McCarthy, John Harbaugh, guys like that. But I mean, there's a lot of guys who are first time and bust, and there's guys who've been coaches multiple times and haven't won a Super Bowl. So you just never know. It's a crapshoot.
Yeah.
And you just hope you find the best guy possible. So.
Thank you. There's no formula for getting it right. That's for sure. Jake, go ahead. There's a lot that we just covered there. What are your thoughts on everything that Mikey just said?
Yeah, how about add two more names to the list, Charlie Weiss and Bill O'Brien.
Oh, yes.
I think that really completes the Belichick tree. And, Bill O'Brien's in the playoffs now for the second, time in a row. And, for when you see him from Hard Knocks, he is an in-your-face, intense disciplinarian. He is that. But has he ultimately led you to believe that the Texans are that impressive of a team? I don't. I think that people would ultimately question that a lot. And, and you've got other aspects of just, I don't know. There's too many question marks when you're just talking about if that's all you're going to narrow it down to is coming from a winning franchise. It just does not always work in that respect.
Yeah.
As far as the clean house and turnover ratio, I'm glad you brought this up because I am of the opinion that too much turnover is a bad thing.
Thank you.
And you cannot, 100% cannot just be, I love SoCal Trav's intensity. I love how he always calls in here. I know he's a very, very avid supporter of the Chargers. He also puts his fan cap on a lot. And, to come out instinctively and just say, hey, yeah, we should just clean house and go after, all new coordinators and whatnot. That's the way to go. I disagree. You cannot put this offense through another offensive coordinator. That would be 3 in 3 seasons. Jeff Davidson, a lot of the other offensive line assistants that you've just brought on, are you really going to take them out of the game when you've seen what your personnel is like at the offensive line position? Moreover, personally, I think on the defensive side of the ball, I don't think there's any changes to be made much of all. Maybe very minor tweaks here and there, but I like Ron Miles as a secondary coach. I love John Pagano as a defensive coordinator. I think what he's done from last year to this year has been immensely better when it comes to stats and how he's utilized his personnel that's taken so many injury hits throughout the year. And there was an interview that I had actually was listening to on Mike and Mike. It was about, I want to say maybe about a month ago. And the coaching talk was coming on board and talking about, foreshadowing the end of the season. And Brian Billick, if you remember, was the head coach of the Ravens for 9 seasons. And he said within that 9-year tenure that he was the head coach of one team, there were, 87 head coaching changes throughout the rest of the league in those 9 years, which means from the 32 teams that there were almost triple the amount of head coaching changes that there ultimately was per team. That's a ridiculous amount of turnover ratio in a 9-year span. And it's just proven that turnover is not always the best thing, and no means should be looked at as a surefire solution for a winning type of calculation that you're having for a team. So it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes you have to be consistent, and moreover, it's about the personnel that is put on the field majority of the time, in my opinion, than it comes to the coaching aspects.
Yeah, and one of the keys of a coach, I think, is being able to utilize the personnel that you have, and that's another thing that just for whatever reason you can talk about. We were scraping the bottom of the barrel with the personnel that we had left, but McCoy, obviously, he just wasn't able to get it done in that aspect. He wasn't able to make it happen with the guys that we had. And the interesting thing is when you bring in a first-time coach, you never know. Is he going to be adaptable, or is he going to be, oh, this is my first time? Kevin Gilbride. Remember Kevin Gilbride? He came in and he thought he knew everything, and he wanted no input from anybody, if I remember correctly. And that didn't go very well either. So I think that this is going to be very, very interesting hire. Now, Jake, do you have any – I know you hate this. Do you have any predictions on how long it's going to be before we have a new head coach announced here in San Diego?
Well, let's see. Their first interview that they're having with Dave Tubb, I believe, is on Sunday. That's actually inside the window of when they can start interviewing. And I know Mike Patricia is this weekend as well, because really the only coaches that they're able to interview at this point are with teams that are on a bye for the playoffs. So anybody who's in the playoffs for next week, as in, Vance Joseph and, a couple of the other guys, outside of, Sean McDermott, anybody that else is in the playoff wild card round, they're not able to interview this weekend. So you're going to take care of Matt Patricia, and Dave Tubb this weekend. But I still think the Chargers are definitely going to take their time and due diligence. I would expect that you wouldn't hear an announcement made, depending on when the Chargers are going to interview candidates. I wouldn't expect that we would hear anything before the end of next week.
Okay, so nothing earlier than the end of next week. What's nothing later than?
I would expect that you're going to get an announcement before the end of the month. That's for sure.
Okay. All right. Mikey, I was another thing I was listening to on the radio. They were talking about when you one of the reasons why first-time head coaches have so much trouble is because they have a real difficult time assembling their staff. They have a real difficult time getting their coordinators, and it's for a few reasons. Number one, they don't have the contacts that coaches who have done it before have. But the second time, they don't know, they're not as good at assembling the right people. Because remember, you could have your defensive coordinator still has to be able to work with your offensive coordinator, and your defensive coordinator still needs to be able to work with the linebacker coaches, and they have a hard time assembling a staff that works well together because they don't have the experience. Do you agree with that? And do you think that that's another issue that we could have if we have a first-time coach?
Well, that's interesting you bring that up. That's would go with the fact of keeping the staff intact, And I never thought about that. I mean, that could be possible. Again, you're put into a leadership role for the first time of a football team, which is not easy. You're used to being very hands-on, and you're kind of asked to be hands-off. So I could see where it would be difficult for a new head coach who doesn't have those contacts, doesn't know a lot of people, and a lot of people that he does know are probably already happily employed by the current team they're with. I could see where that would be an issue. And I mean, that's not obviously my reason for not wanting a first-year head coach, but again, I could see where that might start. Which again, kind of talking about what Jake said, I was surprised when I saw the list that there were so many first-time head coach candidates. That it shocked me. So that's why I think, I find it interesting, actually, that Telesco would bring in so many guys without coaching experience.
Another thing, Jake, not only with that, but when you have a first-time head coach and you need to hire, when you're hiring guys from other teams to be your coordinators and stuff like that, nobody out there is making a lateral move. You're going to have to hire somebody in a lower position, bringing them to an upper position if you want them to come aboard. Right. And sometimes that's an issue, too, for first-time coaches.
Right, and we don't know who's going to be available or anything like that. I'm sure that there's going to be more terminations in different teams at certain position coaches. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be making changes, but you have no way of knowing who's going to ultimately be available. So that you're taking a huge risk that if you're to let go of your entire staff, who are you going to get in return? And then if we may be right back here a year later having the exact same conversation yet again.
Well, I'm going to go with SoCal Trav in the chat room right now. He's put this in there a couple times, so I'll start with you, Mike Maciejewski. Mike Maciejewski, you get hired tomorrow as the Chargers head coach. Would you be interested in bringing Rex Ryan in as your defensive coordinator?
No. Don't even start.
Hey,
no.
It is the raw, intense disciplinarian in your face. I mean, it's it is that guy.
When Justin said that last week, I was rolling my eyes. I know you guys will never see me.
I am too. I have
zero. Rex Ryan is a clown. He has an obsession with the Patriots for some apparent reason, and I mean he came with a lot of credibility, but in the last two coaching jobs he's had, he's lost a lot of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't want Rex Ryan to come anywhere near San Diego. Jake, I heard you laughing, but what if you're the Chargers head coach tomorrow? Would you bring him in as your defensive coordinator?
I'm giving like one of those silent golf claps to Mikey right now. It's just I didn't want to be too loud and overtake his voice, but I just want him to know that he's spot on with everything that he just said. Absolutely not. You do not bring Rex Ryan into this organization. And yeah, he talked about, what was it, when he was with the Jets, that he said that if he would have coached the Chargers, that he would have taken us to 2 or 3 Super Bowls. Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that at all. Not at all. He's the entertainment factor. If it's the media, they want him to get another head coaching job next year, no matter where it is. The media loves Rex Ryan.
Yes.
But fans and organizations themselves should not.
Yeah, I agree. Now, if they do, it looks like they are leaning towards a defensive-minded coach, which, like I said, it's a different direction that they've gone. And if they do that, whoever it is in a good position because Ken Wisenhunt's already here. But let me ask you this. We'll start with you this time, Jake. They bring in a defensive-minded coach. Does that mean it's going to be tough for John Pagano to stay on as defensive coordinator?
That is a good question. You have to wonder, is this going to be, and this is another reason why I kind of lean towards Mike Smith, because of the fact that he's already been there before. There may not be so much butting of the heads with him and a defensive coordinator like John Pagano, who's been here for a good duration of time. With the first-time head coach, you may actually see some conflict, especially with it being a majority of defensive coordinator candidates. So you definitely don't want that. But I will say, if the Chargers do go down that road, it's quite possible that you may see, depending on how the defense overall performs, whether that's good or bad, you may see John Pagano have the opportunity to leave the Chargers for a greater opportunity of being a coach elsewhere, depending on where he takes this defense from a production-wise.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question, actually. John Pagano is I haven't heard anything this season. Do you see him as a possible head coaching candidate this season even, or if not this season, in the future? Is that something that he has aspirations for, and is that something that you see as a possibility, Jake?
We haven't heard anything publicly that he has aspirations for a head coaching job. I believe that at some point before he is done in the NFL, that he will land something, because I think he's a very experienced defensive-minded guy. And, you obviously could see what his brother Chuck was ultimately able to get to in Indianapolis. And not to say that, he's either going to be successful or not, but I definitely think he's going to get the opportunity because you see what a type of a player's coach he is. And for the fact that he's put in so much time on a defensive unit, and an evolving defensive unit at that, and the fact that he's so versatile in all of his schemes. So I guarantee you that has not gone overlooked whatsoever. So I definitely think that the opportunity for him will be there. And again, I think it all depends on what head coach comes in. So, that could be sooner rather than later for John Pagano getting another opportunity. And ultimately, if the defense gets better or worse, that opportunity to me is still going to be there.
Yeah, one thing that some people for some reason, some people don't like him, some people like him, but nobody can argue that he's not adaptable. He's been very, very adaptable since he's been here. Mikey, what are your thoughts on John Pagano as a future head coach somewhere in the near future, the far future, or you don't see it at all?
Well, let me just say, I'm not a big fan of John Pagano. He's been here a long time, and I know he's worked his way up. There's something in particular that I don't like about him. I think. Did
you ever see him sitting in old man sandals? Maybe that's it.
No, I did not. So I guess he's got that going for him.
That's why he's still on the team, because he doesn't wear them.
That's all right. We'll get Mike Smith caught up in West Coast fashion. I guess that's good for Atlanta.
Yeah.
Not here. Well, he's in Tampa Bay now, so he probably has more of those.
Yeah.
But no, Pagano, I think a lot of it has been lack of talent. Obviously, this is one thing that's really hard to to really wrap my head around. Is sometimes the teams aren't very good, and we've talked about forever. Yep. I've talked about forever the defensive line being very poor on this team, and what can you do as a defensive coordinator to bring pressure with what you had, and so there's what the promise he's shown this year. Actually, as I was thinking and hearing Jake talk and hearing you guys talk, I was thinking, maybe in a year, he can make a big step and maybe make that push to become head coach. If this defense can rise to one of the best in the NFL, or we become a really good, we have a good season where the defense isn't put in bad situations and they really shine, then that could really springboard his career. But overall, I mean, you guys, I kind of want to touch upon the part about what Jake's about Mike Smith coming in and possibly not butting heads with Pagano or maybe a new defensive coordinator. I hadn't thought about that, and that's a good point. As a defensive coordinator, you want to come in, is what you're used to doing. They may overstep their boundaries with Pagano, and maybe Pagano's not here or it causes friction. But overall, I mean, like I said, I'm not a fan of Pagano, but I think with the talent that he has now and what he did this year shows a little bit of promise for his future aspirations.
I'm going to try and bring SoCal Trav's trying to come in on Skype, so we're going to try and bring him in while we're talking here. Trav, are you there?
I'm here, brothers.
All right.
I'm here.
Yeah, baby.
All right. Go ahead and defend your Rex Ryan should be the defensive coordinator talk there.
I just like that big fat guy. I like the circus act. He reminds me of Mike McCoy. We need a circus act.
Oh, man, he was much more charismatic than Mike McCoy.
We got a circus act on the sideline, man. We got to continue the Mick Visor tradition.
Now, in all seriousness, do you actually think that Rex Ryan would be successful here, or are you doing what Hal loves to do, and that's just trolling?
No, I don't know. He is known for defense. I mean, look what he did with Baltimore. I mean, he could build a solid defense, and I don't blame him for the whole thing in New York, because we know the New York ownership is just like the Chargers ownership. They're too cheap to spend good money.
No argument there.
And he doesn't have the opportunity to. But if they open up the floodgates and allow somebody to do so, I say bring in the best people possible for each coordinator position. And I just think I agree with Mikey. I think Pagano, he's been here just too damn long, and he's been here. He was here with Norv, and I just think we need fresh faces, all new, and just get it going. Maybe not the offensive coordinator, with Wisenhunt, because I agree. I mean, we can't have 3 new guys in a row, but I think defense, we need special teams, offensive line. We need a new, especially strength and conditioning. Kenton Johnson. Yeah,
there it is.
Kenton Johnson needs to go.
Yeah. The thing is, I've been on the fence on the whole strength and conditioning thing on the sense that, I'm not sure how much they could do for Achilles tendons and knee ligaments, but one of the arguments that I've been making for the last, 2 or 3 years is it seems like on San Diego, 1 week hamstring strains turn into 6-week hamstring strains, 1 week calf strain turns into a 4-week calf strain. Nobody ever comes back early, ever. It always takes longer. And I don't follow the other teams, as closely as I do the Chargers, but it just seems like we recover so slowly. I'm not talking about like torn tendons and stuff, because that's something different. But strains and hamstrings and stuff like that just seems like we come back way too slow from stuff like that. And I don't know if that's on Kent Johnson or not, but I'd say let's move on and let's see. What do you think about that, Trav?
I agree. He definitely needs to go. I mean, he's obviously not doing something right in the room. Like, if he's not hard enough on him, if he's just weak on him, there's ways to make guys stronger so they can try to eliminate these injuries. And I agree. You can't do much with a torn Achilles or a ripped, a torn ACL, MCL, but there's ways to try to prevent it and make these guys stronger. And I don't think he's doing the job. Remember, he's from the Cleveland Browns. I mean, we just that out of all the coordinators that we have, I think he needs to go before anybody else goes. He's got to be at the top of that list.
Jake, how long has Kent Johnson been with the Chargers? Do you know?
He's been with them for some time now, I believe. I can't remember the exact amount of years, but he's been with them for a little while. But I think to SoCal Trav's point, when he said that he's got to be at the top of the list, I think we can maybe put Craig Acumen, our special teams coach, maybe at 1A. With Ken Johnson along with that. I think we can all agree that those are 2 changes that definitely need to happen when it relates to the coaching staff on this team.
Yeah, lots of special team mistakes. If you remember, until we were all upset by how Travis Benjamin started out, but a lot of the problems were decision making, and I don't know. You could put that on the special teams coordinator, but at least you can put on him the fact that if you have guys in there that are making poor decisions, then you need to get somebody else in there. And special teams this year, I know Mikey says statistically they were better. To me, they were absolutely atrocious this year, and I think special teams cost us quite a few games this year. And I think that we need to move on. I'm not on board with you, Trav, cleaning house. I think it's easy to say, but it's hard to successfully do because you have to find replacements for all those. And it's like going to a restaurant and you order something off the menu and you think, this is okay. Maybe I should have ordered something different, but the next thing you order might have been worse. And I think you got to be real careful if you're going to hire too many different people at once. You have the opportunity to make a lot of mistakes. Whereas if you just try and upgrade a few of the bad things that you have there, you have a better opportunity of making your team overall better. Would you agree with that, Trav, or are you still on board? Just get rid of everybody and start fresh.
Well, I mean, I've been on the start fresh since
1982.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I would like to see fresh guys on the side. I mean, whatever they're doing is not working, but I agree with you partly on some of that. So I think if they're going to replace any of the coordinators, like I said, I agree it needs to be Kent and it needs to be special teams. And I also think we need a new offensive line coach, because everybody to the left of Slauson and everybody to the right of Slauson absolutely sucks.
Yeah.
Well, we know that we know what we've already disclosed on this show many times about King Dunlap and Joe Barksdale. And to be perfectly honest, I think that's more of a talent level with those two individuals than it is with the scheme.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And we're gonna get into the positions. I'm gonna throw this out there anyways, just because I'm interested. I was so excited when Fluker moved into guard. I just expected him to go in there and dominate and annihilate, and he has not done that. I know it's just it's just easy to say, but I'm almost ready to put him back out at tackle because while he might not have been at the level tackle that we all wanted, I think he's a better tackle than he is a guard. I'll start with you, Jake. Do you agree with that, or do you want to keep him in at guard?
It's so I don't know, honestly, because I really can't say that I've seen him perform better at right tackle than he has at guard. We all remember what he was at right tackle, and we thought because of his size, if you kick him inside, that he would just be this dominant type of guy. But at the same time, it's just like he's not doing anything really to wow me at that position. Even with Matt Slauson as the center on his left, I mean, I know what you have in a train wreck and Barksdale on the right of you, but still, I really haven't seen a whole lot of plays where Fluker is just dominating his defensive guy off the line. So, you'd probably have to go back and you'd have to watch, the last 2 years of film with Fluker and just look at it as far as, and if you were to compare the 2 years prior to that with him at the tackle position. But again, I haven't really seen anything that's particularly wowed me. You may be at the point where you can consider DJ Fluker a bust of a pick. I hate to say it because I really like Fluker's personality. I think he's a gamer. I think he loves the game of football. Other than Slauson, he's really the only offensive lineman that actually happens to stay in the game because Franklin seems like he gets injured in and out of the game every week. Same with Barksdale. Dunlap just doesn't know where he's at on the field. So you have to keep some type of consistency, but at the same time, I mean, you have to look at a guy's body of work and says, hey, is it productive for this team moving forward? Isn't going to get any better, or do we have to replace it? And maybe you're in a situation where you have to start asking yourself that question if DJ Fluker is part of this team's future anymore.
Thoughts on Fluker quickly, Mikey? What do you think? Are you there, Mikey? All right, Mikey lost his chance. Travis.
Hey, I got you. Sorry.
Oh,
Sorry.
Mikey.
There he is.
There he is. Mikey, thoughts on Fluker?
Mikey was on the
I don't know what
throne.
to say, man. It's just, we talked about this offensive line ad nauseum every week, and Fluker, I don't know. It's one of those things where I think you need to solidify something for him, find a way to make him work. How long is his contract left?
I think he got 1 year left.
1 year left.
I mean, you got to figure it out with this guy in the next year. Either find a new position or find a position that's going to, keep him, give him some stability. And if not, you got to move on. I mean, like I said, that first year, it's just crazy for what happened that first year to where he's at now.
I'm trying to be real careful here the way I say this. What I see from Fluker physically, I don't see any issues. It's like he gets fooled. It's like he can't figure out his assignment on every play from what I've seen. I haven't broke down film. I don't want to make you think that I have. It's just from when I watch the games, he's a touch late to whatever guy he's supposed to be blocking. If he's not late and he gets a hold of the guy, there's no problem. But he's like, he thinks a little bit too slowly as an offensive lineman, and I'm not trying to say he's stupid. I'm being real careful here. But maybe he doesn't have the instincts to know exactly where he needs to be, and he thinks too much, and he gets there too slowly, because it seems to me that he gets fooled too much. Not that he's getting physically beat. It's like he's getting mentally beat. Have you looked at him enough, Travis? Do you see any of that, or what are your thoughts on Fluker?
I like the guy, and I think he's a good guy. I love him. He's a good guy. I've actually met him. I met him at camp. He's a really, really good dude. And like Jake said, he loves the game of football. But something isn't working, and I don't know if it's just him or who's coaching him at the position. Like if they're not giving him enough direction or enough, enough opportunity. I don't know what it is, but he seems like he's just not fast on his feet.
Yeah.
He's very slow. I know he lost a lot of weight last offseason. He worked his ass off because I follow him on Instagram, and he's every day he had a new video of him just pounding the pavement, shedding pounds. But it didn't seem to help this season. He still seems to be slow.
Yeah, like a half a step behind, But
right. I don't know what it is, but I really, really, really want to see him succeed.
Yeah, there's no other guy that you'd rather go to war with. If you watch him, he is the guy playing to the whistle and past the whistle on every single play. When you see the ball, on the occasion that we do run the ball 8-10 yards down the field, he's the guy down there hitting somebody. It's a bummer because he's a guy that you want to like and you want to succeed. That's a good point.
And I hope that he does. I hope maybe whatever changes are coming this off season with coaches or what have you, someone work with him and get him. He needs to be faster on his feet and a little bit more bulk on the upper body. Not fat bulk, but muscle bulk, because he seems a little weak up top too. He seems like he was getting stomped on a lot, from the defensive linemen. They're just crushing him and going right through him, right to Rivers. So I like to see him succeed. I think he can, just with the right coach.
Jake, have the Chargers finished? Does the letting people go, is that finished now with McCoy until they hire a new head coach? Or is there a chance that we might see them let their special teams coordinator go or let some other guys go before we get a new coach?
It could, but ultimately, I think I think the organization could make a decision at any time. But I think from the standpoint of what it is that you want to do with the new coach, because you're not doing an overhaul this season. You want to probably. It sounds like to me that whoever is going to be the new head coach of this team is going to have a lot more input in the overall makeup of their staff. Being able to have a little bit more control as far as power goes in some of the decisions that this organization makes. So I think that they're going to ultimately wait for their new head coach to ultimately come in, oversee the staff, see what it is that they ultimately want to be changed, wherever that is. Because we don't know. We could be in for a shocker here in the next couple of weeks for certain guys that we wouldn't be expecting to let go that ultimately are, depending on who the next head coach of this team is. But I definitely get the vibe that whoever the next head coach of the Chargers is going to have a lot more power to throw around for however it is they want to have a makeup of this team.
Last question here. I'm going to start with Mikey. Is this situation in San Diego a good situation? And I'm talking about roster-wise, not where the team is going to play, because I think that's going to be one of the tough things for them bringing in a coach is the instability with where the team is going to be playing. But let's put that aside. Roster-wise, if you're an outsider looking in, thinking about the guys that are coming back, thinking about the contract situation, thinking about the position of our offensive line, all of those things, is this a team that you would be excited to come to thinking that you could come here and win right now? Or is this going to be more of the type of team that somebody that's desperate to be a head coach is going to have to – that's the only type of guy we're going to get to because it's not a good situation coming into roster-wise. What's your thoughts on that, Mikey? I'll let everybody answer, but we'll start with Mikey.
Okay, well, I'm sure you guys all saw the rankings of the available head coaching jobs, and I think the Chargers were third. I think that's a pretty fair spot when I see them. Looking at the roster, I know that you have a quarterback, albeit a interception-prone one, and you have a I had to take my shot there, guys.
Yeah.
And you have but you do have some young talent. You have a good defense. You have a good running back. You have a quarterback in place. You have all those things. And the one thing we talk about is the line. And I think Jake brought it up a couple weeks ago when Justin was saying cut the whole line.
Can't do that.
You can't do that. So you're kind of strapped in a way cap wise that you can only do so much to improve this roster and hope that what you have at certain positions is good enough. So I believe that's why it's a top 3 job. I think it's probably number 3. But I mean, you do have some good parts in place where you can make this team a possible playoff contender with the draft and a free agency. Like I said, I don't know the cap thing. I don't know where we're at with players, but I mean, if you can make some moves here and there, I think if you can make the right moves, you could make this team a playoff contender.
Travis, roster-wise, is San Diego a good job for a head coach to come into?
Roster-wise, yes, because we, like Mikey just hit it on. We have our defense is phenomenal, and it's only going to get better. I mean, there is one piece I think that needs to be replaced on that defensive side, and I'm not going to mention names, but he came from the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, safety.
Got it. I know it. Got it.
Yep.
That is why you're my boy, Salgaltraz.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think Lowry needs to take a hike.
Yeah.
He's terrible.
Jake was all over that, by the way. Props to
yes.
Jake, because Jake was on that from the day he was signed.
So, but I think our defense is really solid right now. If everybody can stay healthy, Brett and Flowers, I think we've got a top 3 defense next season if everything works out right. Our offensive side, we obviously all agree Rivers is a great quarterback. The only thing I don't like about him is that he can't get out of the pocket and run. I mean, he's a pocket passer. He doesn't have any legs, and that's also due to his age. He's getting older. But at the same time, if we have an offensive line like the Dallas Cowboys, he would have time to pass the ball. Yeah. So, yes, I would say this is a top 3 job. But like you hinted, it also depends on where they're going to play. I would not want to move my family if I'm coming from the East Coast to San Diego, and all of a sudden, now we're moving to LA. I've got to move again.
Yeah.
So, especially with coaches that have kids and families, they don't want to keep bouncing around because the Spanos don't know what they're doing. So I think they need to make a decision where they're going to stay before they hire a coach, because it could end up backfiring on them. Because if they hire a coach, moves to San Diego, now we're going to LA. You know what? I can't do this again. And that's that. So I think they need to decide where they're going, hire a coach, and I think they will get a great coach in here. And I think I agree. It is a top 3 destination for a head coach right now.
I love how Trav said, I think we all can agree that Rivers is a great quarterback. That's great. He hasn't listened to this show for a while. I think he's a couple months out.
Well, most of us think he's a great quarterback because I know I do. Jake, you could finish it up here. Is San Diego a good opportunity, a good place for a coach to come right now?
SoCal Trav brought up a great point there at the end, talking about location. I think that was one of the reasons why you heard last week that the Chargers came out and they said, doesn't matter where they're playing this next season, whether it be San Diego or LA, but all of their OTAs and their training facilities, all their off-season work is going to still be held in San Diego. I think they divulged that for a reason, preempting the fact that they could let coaches know to say, hey, just so you know, this is where we're still going to be in case you have any questions about preparation or where, you need to locate or relocate, if you've got families, whatnot, if you're coming here. I think that was a strategic move as any, and I'm glad that he brought that up. But yeah, definitely, I think as far as from a personnel standpoint, I think the Chargers have a lot of pieces. And again, let's think about this. We were a game worse than we were this year last season. And you were able to get the league leader in interceptions and free agency for a very decent cost. You had the number 3 overall pick in Joey Bosa, who led all rookies this year with sacks with 10.5. You have a top flight cornerback in Jason Verrett, staying healthy, obviously, but you have a lot of integral pieces defensively. Offensively as well, yes, you still have to start with the quarterback. In the AFC West, Phillip Rivers is the most experienced, and no knock on David Carr, but in my opinion, he still is the best quarterback in the AFC West. And what he has around him, you have a running game building in Melvin Gordon. There are a lot of intangible pieces there that are very enticing to coaches to say, hey, we can make some minor adjustments here, some free agency signings here. We make a free couple draft picks in this area, and you could actually be on a team that could be a contender here in the very, very near future, if not the soonest next year, depending on what happens with the rest of this division. So I think it's a very enticing job, and hey, it's still the West Coast, baby. I mean, you gotta like that for the weather aspect. So I don't think it's going to deter anybody. If anything is the deterring factor, yeah, it's the location question mark that's looming over everybody's head here over the next couple of weeks.
Well, I agree with you guys. I think that roster-wise, it's a very, very good situation to come into. We all see the warts on this team, and that is at safety, and that is on the offensive line. However, every team has warts. Not every team, no team has a Pro Bowler at every single position. You're going to have weaknesses. This team does have weaknesses, but I think ultimately the biggest weakness is health. If they all come back healthy, which we know they all won't, we'll have injuries next year. You have them every year, but if we can get a lot of these guys back next year, maybe not have the devastating injuries next year, they have a foundation for a really, really, really strong team. So I think that's a good reason to come here and coach. And the one thing that Travis brought up, that's the one thing I kind of was trying to leave out of it, just because nobody knows. It is going to be interesting. And the other thing, Jake, is I'll ask you before you go. Do the Chargers ownership know what they're doing? Have they just not told us? Do you think that they know? I'm not talking. Wait. I didn't mean that like, are they stupid and not know what they're doing? But have they already decided and they just haven't told everybody yet where they're going to be playing next year, do you think?
No, I don't think that that's the point. I really think that this is coming down to an 11th hour decision. I really truly believe that Dean is conflicted about this entire aspect of leaving. I truly believe that he wants to be here.
Me too.
And I went over this 2 weeks ago when we were on the show. The politicians have just done an absolute horrible job of the way that they have divulged their support to the public, to the way that they've divulged their support to the Chargers. In the meantime, over the last couple of years, the Chargers have done an absolutely horrible job of doing everything possible and being more flexible in their demands of what they have. So there's mistakes all over the place. You can't look at it from one aspect or another. But with these recent reports showing a little bit of optimism, I know we won't get into that. Because that's obviously all going to play out here with the owners' meetings over the next week or so. I honestly still believe that the best hero for the Chargers staying in San Diego is Jerry Jones. And I believe that man holds the voice of the rest of the owners of the organization. We know that he's buddy-buddy with Dan Kroenke as far as wanting him to make as much money as possible. And I think it ultimately is going to come down to a deciding factor of just keeping the Rams as a full tenant in Los Angeles and ultimately what the owners want to do. And that is going to be the ultimate decision, in my opinion, because I believe that Dean is going to do whatever the commissioner and the owners want him to do. So if it's ultimately, hey, go back to San Diego, try to figure something out. Here's an extra, 175 million. Hey, that's great. Let's get it done this time around. Or if the owners ultimately decide that they want him to come to LA, I think that Dean would do it. I do. I hate to say it, but I think he would do it in that respect, given what's happened over the last 15 years.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to say that he would not go to LA. I still think that it's more bluff than anything, but that doesn't mean he's not willing to do it. But I do agree with you, Jake. I think ultimately, if he was being completely honest and forthright. He would tell you he does not want to move to L.A. Mikey, anything you want to add to that before we move on to Aztec talk?
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I think the NFL does not want to set that precedent where, that they're giving more money and not taking as much from the public. But I think this could really, really change that. It sounds like the Chargers, will end up getting possibly some more money from the NFL. And that could really, set a good precedent moving forward for other sports teams against leagues. And that would be nice because I really feel like, too much public money is going into these stadiums. And I think St. Louis is still paying for their football stadium. They're not even done paying that off, and there's no team to pay to play in it. So, that if the NFL really needs to step up, that's what they want.
Yep. Last thoughts on the whole Dean moving situation, Travis. I know you feel strongly about it. You want him to sell the team, which isn't going to happen. Ultimately, though, do you think you don't think he wants to move? Do you?
I don't think he wants to because I know for a damn fact he doesn't want to play second fiddle to Kroenke, and knowing that nobody in LA wants the team there. Only 6% of the Charger fans want them in LA. So, why would you take a team to LA and have 6% of your fans fill the stadium up? And who knows if you'll even fill it up with visiting teams, right. Especially in LA, because Inglewood isn't really the easiest spot to get to. Yeah. But I think he does want to leave him in LA, in San Diego. And I think that's all it's going to take is him bouncing back and forth where he wants to go. And, saying he doesn't have the money to build a stadium. That's what's making fans mad. And that's why fans aren't going to games. Fans are tired of the way he is taunting us and teasing us and playing games with us. So you spend money to go and, oh, we're moving. Oh, we're not building a stadium. We want you to build it. So I think if the stadium deal gets done, if that's finalized, he'll stay. And I think you'll start seeing fans come back and filling up the stadium with blue and gold instead of black and silver or blue and orange or red and white and yellow, So, yeah, I think he wants to stay, and I hope the heck he does, because if not, he can kiss my ass.
I love it, Trav. That's so typical. Anybody who's listening for the first time or hasn't heard SoCal Trav ever on the show, that is SoCal Trav. That sentence right there sums up SoCal Trav. That's great. Oh, I love it.
You have to.
Sorry, the FCC. I didn't mean to cuss on the radio.
Trust me, we've said there's been a lot of worse things said on this show.
A lot worse.
But yes, I would love to see him sell the team. I think that would be fantastic.
Not going to happen. Not going to happen.
No, it won't.
Ultimately, we're going to wrap things up here. I know the Aztecs game is starting. I'm hoping Mikey can stay on a little bit and talk Aztecs a little bit. I know the game's going on. But I do want to tell you guys, coming up next week, depending on coach talk, if the Chargers have hired a new coach by next Wednesday, we'll probably be dedicating most of the show talking about him. We will be talking coach anyways, just because I'm sure there'll be some more news. Other than that, next week I want to start breaking down the current roster position by position. I was thinking of starting with the quarterback, but why would we do that? Let's end with the quarterback. So I think we're going to start with the secondary, probably the safety position next week.
The draft.
All right, Lowry.
So we'll talk about what we need to do with the people that are on the team. If we think we need to draft, I know Jake's been working hard on the draft. I can't wait to start talking about that too. So we'll be doing that, but we're going to be starting with the secondary. So I want everybody to be thinking this weekend safety, and I don't know if we're going to do safeties and cornerbacks or just safeties next week. Let's think about probably just safeties. Just kind of think about where the Chargers are at safety-wise on the roster, where you think they need to go, if you're happy with the current guys, or which guys you want to keep, which guys you want to move on from. And that's what we'll be talking about next week, unless they hire a coach. They hire a coach, that's what we're going to be talking about. Go for it.
Real quick.
Go, Trav.
We're going to talk, safety and secondary. Can we just throw in place kicker and punter along with that, because it's two easy guys to talk about as well?
Well, I do want to talk about special teams. We're going to have to combine them with something else, and I'm not sure with what yet. Not this week though. Special teams actually. it's going to be interesting because we might have a lot to say about those guys.
I promise I won't smile running off the field.
Ultimately, hopefully you're available next Wednesday, Trav, because I know that you have some strong feelings about Dwight Lowry, but I'd be interested to hear what you have to say about the other safeties on the roster because.
I'll definitely be available. If we're talking Lowry, I'll be live and in charge here, baby.
Nice. All right. Well, we'll bring you in then. That'd be awesome. Jake, anything else you want to add before we go?
Are we in draft mode yet?
Well, it depends on who you're talking about. Me, not yet. You, about 6 or 8 weeks ago.
I'm in draft mode.
There you go. I got one.
I'm there, Jake. I'm there. I'm with you too.
You're there? All right, I got 2. Still, Jason doesn't want to get on the bandwagon yet.
I'm not quite there, but we were talking about off air, and we will be doing our live draft show. We're bringing it back, baby. We took a couple years off. We're doing our live draft show from Jake's place this year.
Which SoCal, you are invited to come as well.
You live right up the street.
Live broadcast.
Definitely come by, man.
Yeah, you're only 20 miles. You're only 20 minutes down the road, dude. You're close.
Yeah,
exactly.
We'll be doing a live where we're going to be bringing the equipment up to Jake's. We're going to be doing live draft. It's going to be really interesting because I think we're going to do an early show. We're going to take a little bit, a couple hours off, and then we're going to be talking live during the draft. It's going to be a lot of fun. I know it's a little ways off, but just a preview for those of you out there, and hopefully Trav, you can be there too. That'd be awesome. But I know Jake's been in draft mode. He's been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of research, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun few weeks anyways, or a few months talking about that type of stuff.
Can I just do one quick thing? I want to ask all you guys really quick. The teams that are currently in the playoffs, I already know one team that'll be one and done, but with the teams that are in place right now, who do you think will be playing in Houston?
Well, you got to think. You got to think that the New England Patriots, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to beat them?
I hate to say that, but
yeah, they will be.
The only team that even had a shot were the Raiders, and then and Carr went out.
They're one and done.
Yeah, they're one and done. I mean, what's it going to be? The Patriots and the Seahawks, maybe?
No. To me, it's either going to be the Patriots and the Dallas Cowboys or the Patriots and the Packers.
Yeah, I'm Cowboys there. Cowboys, Patriots.
I think it's going to be Cowboys as well. They're just too good.
How awesome would it be if the Cowboys lost their first game?
And I think the Chiefs are going to beat the Patriots in the AFC Championship. That's just my opinion, but we'll go from there.
I would be an honorary Chiefs fan for one day if that ultimately happened. If there was any way of keeping New England out of another Super Bowl, it's like the Yankees.
Yes.
It's just you just want to root against them no matter who
They're
it is.
They're a disease that just doesn't go away.
Yeah.
Right. Because I really have gotten sick and tired of rooting for NFC teams over the last couple of years going against the New England Patriots with the Denver Broncos in the Super Bowl. So I'd really like to not have that happen this time, and I'd actually like to see a different team in there for a change to represent the AFC.
That's a good call. Who do you think, Trav? You think it's going to be the Patriots and who did you think from? You thought the Cowboys, right?
I think it's going to be the Chiefs and Cowboys.
Oh, the Chiefs and the Cowboys. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I guess as long as it's not the Patriots, we'll be okay with that. All right, that's going to wrap things up for us for Charger Talk. Trav, thanks for joining us, man. I hope that you're available next Wednesday. I know that you were in there on Sunday, and you had a lot of stuff to talk about, but Sunday we only got an hour, and we usually just talk about the game. Now we don't have any games to talk about, so every Wednesday it's pretty much open forum. So we appreciate it.
If I'm not working, I'll jump in on Skype with you guys for sure, man. I love talking off season. I love talking draft and predictions and try to plan the future of this team. We should just own the team and do it ourselves.
Love it.
We'll have to see
Kickstarter.
Yeah. Maybe Dean will sell the team to us.
I'd put up some money. I'd take every friggin' ounce of money I had and take the fattest loan possible to make it happen.
Yeah. I'd take both dollars that I have and I would pitch them in there.
You can be the water boy.
Yeah. I appreciate that, Trav. All right, Trav, thanks for joining us. Jake, as always, thanks for coming on board. We appreciate it. I know you've been in draft mode for a while, so as sad as it is, I think that I almost feel like this is your favorite time of the year talking about stuff like this. So we got lots of stuff
when
to
we
talk
get the
about.
draft pick that I want, when we tank and we lose and we land in the top 10, then yes, I am extremely happy because there's no benefit in winning when you're that far along in the season and you have a losing record. So, yes, as of right now, this is my favorite time of year. Go Bolts.
Yeah.
As long as we don't have a holdout again, we'll be good.
I have a feeling that everybody learned their lesson. I don't think that's going to happen again.
SoCal, you didn't have to burn your Bosa jersey. That was
I actually have 2 of them now.
I should have bought it for $1 when I could.
You doubled down.
I have a color rush, and I've got a navy blue one.
Oh, you went out and you got the color rush jersey.
I did. That's the sweetest Charger jersey in history. That thing's badass looking.
It did look pretty sweet. Pretty sweet. Don't you have a hookup for jerseys?
I do. He's in San Diego, actually.
Is he? I'm gonna have to tweet you because I'm
big
interested in
50 bones, baby.
Nice. All right, Trav. I'm gonna let you go. We got to talk about Aztecs. Thanks a lot, man, for joining us. I look forward to next Wednesday, man.
Bye later.
All right, see ya. All right, Jake. You still there?
See you, sir. Have a good one.
Jake, have a good one, man. We appreciate you coming on board.
Guys.
All right, thanks. All right, Mikey, guess what? It's just you and me, my friend.
All right, buddy.
Did you watch that Aztecs game, the first game of the conference last? Of course you did.
Of course I was there.
All right. You need to give me what your thoughts were on that. They had the lead. They chargered it, basically, is what they did. They led that whole game until the very, very end. And what's funny is I'm watching the game, and I think they were up by 1 or 2, and then they were down by 1 or 2, and something came up. I had to go, and I couldn't follow it. And all of a sudden, I get an update on my phone. They ended up losing by like 8 or something. I said, what the hell happened?
Yeah.
Please tell me what the hell happened.
You know, I don't know why. They just stopped going inside. I'm watching actually the game right now, and every time Cheatham gets the ball, Nevada's double teaming him. And they have Cameron Oliver.
As they should.
Yeah, and so as I'm watching the game, at one point they gave the ball to Cheatham down low, and I'm like, holy crap, this is what they're doing the whole first half. Why they stop?
Yeah.
Like that was the problem. They just stopped doing that, and they started, playing one-on-one and moving the ball on the outside.
Yeah. And
that seems to be something they keep doing. I don't understand why that's happening, but they're doing it over and over and over again. So that's what's going on, Jason. That's what's going on with this team. They're living and dying by a 3.
Yep.
And they died by a 3 that last game. So it was very disappointing, especially since they played so well.
They're not playing as a team. From what I see, I'm going to expound on what you said. They're not a team. They're a bunch of individuals out there. They're just a bunch of guys out there playing. It's like going out to the park and playing a pickup game. And I don't see them working as hard on the defensive side of the ball as they used to. Maybe they don't have the talent. Maybe they're not as good. I don't see the full court press anymore, which that's a coaching decision, which obviously they're making it for a reason. But they were suffocating defensively a couple years ago. And is it a talent thing now? Do they just not have the talent to do that anymore? Because I have never seen an Aztec team give up so many goddamn easy baskets as they do.
Yeah, I think there's just a defensive thing. I mean, I think they're just the guys that you can trust on defense, you can count on one hand, and that's the problem. There's a lot of that defense that, like you said, that the full court press is gone. There's only certain guys that are playing hard on defense. It's pretty obvious to me, and that's a problem. That's a problem when you're a defensive team, and you live and die on your defense as well. So. That's been an issue. I'm actually watching the game right now, and I'm looking at the same thing, and again, there's certain players just can't hack it on defense and who aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing and playing as well as they should be playing.
Now, I talked about this defensively, talent wise, but is maybe I hate to say this, and I don't want you to think that I'm piling on but are they just maybe not that good? Is that a possibility? Is this team just maybe not as good as we thought they were? They're just not that good?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is that. I think part of it is the fact that this team has had some terrible luck this year with the players, and obviously you don't have Malik Pope, and Shrigley's now hurt, which I don't know what happened there, but yeah, I mean. They're definitely not as good as we expected them to be, and that's for sure. And I think again, you have some good parts, like you said. There's not a complete team. You have some good parts there.
Yeah.
You have, Hemsley plays well, Cheatham plays well, and there's some guys that just aren't playing that well, and you can tell for sure when you see them.
And the thing is, you mentioned those guys. Hemsley and Trey Kell, I'd love those guys. I would never want to replace either one of those guys with anybody else. Cheatham, of course, you know how much I love him, but for some reason, you're right. They just have a bunch of good guys, but they don't have a good team. And boy, this is going to be a little bit blasphemous here, but is some of that on the coach? Is some of that on? Can we put some of that on him?
I don't know. I really don't know. It's it's one of those things that, Justin and I were talking. I was hoping he'd come on. We were planning on getting together and talking a little earlier because, recruiting-wise, it's just not the same. And
who's the guy that left and went to? Didn't we have a guy leave and go up to UCLA or to Arizona or something?
USC, yeah, Tony Bland.
Tony Bland. Is that when things started going downhill?
No, because actually, once Tony Bland left, that's when we got Malik Pope, because Justin Hudson came back and he got Pope.
Okay, let me ask you this. This is going to maybe be blasphemous too. Was Malik Pope maybe not as good of a find as we thought he was? Because we've got. I'm really sorry to say this, Mikey, but all we have out of him is potential. We have not gotten any zero returns on Malik Pope.
Yeah, and actually that's why I kind of teased you earlier that this is where I was going to go off. And I've always been a big fan. I mean, like I said, I saw his mixtapes. I mean, you see mixtapes and you go, okay, they're mixtapes. But what I saw of his were completely way different than anything I'd seen before. Mm-hmm. And the big thing is apparently he during the game, he was on his phone, and that's, I think just mentally this kid's not there, mentally he's just not where he should be. And that's a problem, obviously.
Yeah.
That you can't coach.
No. No. Is there, I mean, I haven't been a San Diego State fan as long as you. I certainly haven't been as followed him as closely as you, but I can't think of a bigger disappointment right now, San Diego State basketball wise, than Malik Pope.
Yeah, I mean, and if that's true, then that's terrible. That's unforgivable in my opinion.
Yeah, I still remember we talk about this all the time. You legit, I put a lot of stock. I know that you're a fan, and I know that you love the team, but I do put a lot of stock in what you say. And you thought he was a legitimate one and done possibility. I know he had injuries. I know that's part of the reason that's held him back. But does this guy maybe just not have the drive, or is this guy maybe not able to? You talk about guys who have been really good their whole life because maybe they've just been ahead of the curve this whole time, but finally that curve has caught up with him, and maybe he doesn't have the drive to get better anymore. It's always come too easy. Maybe that's it. Maybe things have come too easy for him in his whole life, and now maybe they're not as easy as they were, but he doesn't have the ability to work hard. Is that a possibility? I know I'm saying all this with absolutely zero knowledge, so I'm just throwing stuff out there. Is that a possibility?
No, yeah. I mean, the thing is that there's tons of guys like that come in and that just don't have the work ethic, don't try that much. But, I mean, they usually aren't Aztecs. They're on other teams. They're players that we see on undisciplined teams, And, we always talk about how these guys are, really good guys. And, they do well and they're good kids. But, yeah, we may have gotten one with Malik Pope. And, I mean, again, I'm by no way trying to say that this is the case, but again, if you're on your cell phone during a game, to me as someone who's coached the game at a low level, obviously, and not like a high school coach or anything, that to me is unacceptable. That's not okay. And if that's really true, then it really makes me question his effort and his love of the game.
Not only that, do you think other players on the team are getting frustrated? I know me as a fan, I'm super frustrated, and I don't know enough about whether it's an effort thing or not. It's I'm just from the outside, but I'm just so frustrated because I've watched for so long waiting for this guy to just be the man, and I mean, is it time to move on, or is it time to give up, or I mean, I don't know.
Lower expectations, sure.
Yeah,
lower expectations. Yeah, lower expectations for sure. You have to. At this point, you just have to. There's really, like you said, it's potential, and we've not seen nothing. We've seen nothing but potential from him.
We know. Hey, we're Padre fans, man. We know all about what potential is.
So I mean, that's the thing. Is like this team, like I said, I honestly don't think they're good. And the scary part is that me, that I'm into the recruiting scene, I don't see where they're going to get that much better. I really don't. Like, there's not a lot of big demand of players coming. That really scares me. That scares me that we'll be, a team with a chance every year in a one bid league, instead of being that team that we were the last 6 years before last year, where we had an automatic bid almost every year.
Yeah, that's a scary thing too now, because we were talking about kind of like we were last year. We were thinking, well, the conference play is going to come on, and they're gonna what are the chances of them go undefeated and stuff? And I mean, I guess I have to thank them, because they knocked that out right away. We didn't have to worry about that because they just lost their first game. But ultimately, their chances of making the tournament now are pretty slim, wouldn't you say? Unless they get this shit turned around.
Yeah, there has to be a turnaround, and like I said, I'm watching them play Nevada. Nevada to me is a favorite in the Mountain West right now, regardless of what their record. I think they're 1-1, but they need to get this win. I mean, it's in Nevada. It's a road game, against one of the better teams. It might be the best team in the Mountain West. This is like a must-win, not because of record, not because of anything like that, just to have some kind of positive here to look from this team, and it's. I heard it again at the beginning of the year. Like they just don't put the effort in all the time. And I think Jeremy Hemsley said it after those losses to Grand Canyon, that they felt they could just turn it on whenever they wanted to. And that's not how this works. And that's not how this team, we are accustomed to seeing these teams, and this needs to, again, there needs to be some kind of change. There needs to be some kind of improvement, because if not, you're going to have this team where it's not going to be the team, the family that it was. It's going to be just a regular team, a team that's like every other, and that's not what the Aztecs are about. They're about being special and being different.
Right, just a mid-level team is all they're going to be.
Exactly. So,
if you're Steve Fisher and you see a team playing like this, now first of all, Steve Fisher did not forget how to coach. Let's get that straight right now. He didn't all of a sudden forget what he's doing. But if what he's saying is not getting through to these guys, and what he's coaching is not getting through to these guys, is it tough for him to say, you know what? I mean, how old is he? 130. Is it tough for somebody like him to just say, you know what, man? I think I'm done. I don't need that. I don't need this. I mean, he doesn't come across as a quitter, but at the same time, my gosh, how frustrating has it got to be for him?
Oh, I'm sure very. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be, it's one of those things that I'm sure is killing him inside. And
he's not young enough to rebuild a program, And I'm not saying that's what the team needs, but I'm just saying we gotta make it happen now. This is not like, we can get better in a year or two. He doesn't have the time anymore. He's not going to coach forever.
No, he's not. So it'll be, like I said, what you see every week is really what you're going to get from this team. And like I said, every week you're just looking to see this team get better, and you need them to get some wins. And it starts tonight. It starts tonight against a Nevada team that I think is really good. And right now they're battling with them right now, and they're keeping it close, and they're making them shoot from three. But
I have them up by 1 right now, but I'm watching online, so I might be behind. I might be behind you a little bit.
Yeah, who's up by 1?
I have now it's tied. I have it tied 17-17.
Okay, I won't let you know. I won't tell you what's going on, but
okay.
Yeah. It's one of those things. It's close. It's close the game right now, and you just kind of gotta have to just see the effort. And right now, it's just so tough. There's no, like I said, there's no one answer. There's no yes, this is it. They need to shoot better. Yeah, they need to shoot better. They need to play better defense. They need to just play better overall. And like I said, this is not, like you said, Coach Fisher did not forget how to play the game. This is not like we talked about in football the other day. The game has not passed him by.
Yeah.
It's not like people have adjusted to what he's done. These guys, in my opinion, just need to play better.
Yeah.
And they need to do better and stop playing this hero ball they were playing.
Yes.
last
call,
week.
hero ball. I like that.
And be a better team. Just be a better team. I have, they all have their limitations. Let's be real. These guys are not all NBA players. They have their limitations, but
that's a dunk right there.
Which one?
It looks like it was Cheatham, but
Oh yeah, Cheatham.
Yeah,
that was a nice one. Yeah, so I mean, they all have their limitations. Just got to find a way to gel together and do well. And again, I don't know how they're going to do it, but they need to find a way. So we'll see what happens. But again, I'm not going to sit here, Jason, and tell you that this team is doing great and give them time. No, it's time to judge them game by game and make adjustments accordingly.
Isn't it? I am gonna let you go because we're gonna wrap things up. So we both have a chance to watch the game. But don't you think it's funny that if we rewind time 365 days ago from today, we were talking about are the Chargers going to be staying or going, and Aztecs need to play better. That's the exact thing we were saying 1 year ago. They just need to play better.
No, definitely. Yeah, it's exactly the same. It's a great point. I mean, things may change, but things still stay the same, Jason.
Yeah, that is funny. I thought that was funny when I hear you saying that they need to play better. I'm thinking, you know what, man? I remember talking about that because even wasn't Steve Fisher on the sideline screaming, "Play better"?
Yeah.
I mean, they're better than this. They are better than this, and for some reason, I like the term. I don't think I've ever actually heard that term. I'm sure you didn't make it up, but they're playing hero ball, and that's exactly what they're doing. And there's no heroes on this team. They need to stop that.
Exactly. So, like I said, we'll see what happens. And like I said, I'm not here to tell you that this team is greater than you see. They are what you see, and we need to, again, hopefully they push forward and do better. Yeah. And if they do, I said they can string some wins together because I think there is talent. These guys are not bad basketball players. They didn't come from high school with their high rankings and then become worse players.
Right.
And people that say that Steve Fisher can't develop, you're crazy. You're crazy about it. Because he took a lot of bad players for a long time and made them good, and made guys who were borderline professional players. He made them, MB. Yeah. He made them professionals. They're playing overseas, and I could take tons of examples and tell you how guys got better here at San Diego State. I'll start right now with DeJohn Stevens. I mean, if you see this guy now, this guy was, had 2 offers coming out of JC, played here 2 years, and went to play professionally in Japan. So, Dakari Allen's gotten better. There's tons of examples.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. He didn't just forget how to coach. But ultimately, if what you're coaching is not getting through or they're not doing it, I don't know how you don't, at this point in your life, after everything that you've done in your career, how you don't just get frustrated and just say, you know what, fuck it, I'm out, man.
Yeah, for sure.
I can't, how old is he? Do you know how old he is for reals? I know I said a lot. How old is he?
67, I believe. So,
he's on the downside of his life, you almost don't want him to feel like he's wasting his life right now or wasting his time with guys that aren't listening, So ultimately, they need to play better. They need to play better, and they need to start winning. And I'm going to believe it when I see it, if these guys can do it, because you're right. They have some good players, but they don't have a good team, and they need to get a good team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So.
All right, Mikey, I appreciate you coming in. I know that it's Aztec night, which is a tougher night for you to come on, but I appreciate you come on and not saying too much bad stuff about Phillip Rivers. I know you tried to crowbar some of that in there, but
can you believe we didn't talk about his league-leading 21 interceptions? and how he's led the league in interceptions 2 of the last 3 years? That's amazing we didn't talk about that.
That is amazing we didn't talk about that. We will be talking about Phillip Rivers, but we're moving to the back of the line, so it's in probably about 7 or 8 weeks when we finally get around to that.
Let me know so I can pencil that in. No, I put that in pen in my schedule.
You can follow Mikey on Twitter at Mikey_AHN. Tell them about your website, Mikey.
Yeah, so it's mostly recruiting, San Diego State basketball recruiting website. Excuse me. I went and saw Brandon McCoy. We talked about it last week, and I did see Tayshaun Cherry. I didn't do a write up yet. I've scheduled about 3 different games to see all the local San Diego State prospects in action. I'll be seeing Tayshaun Cherry versus Brandon McCoy. I'll be seeing Miles Norris, who's a top 10 player in 2018, or top 20 for sure. And then I'll be seeing Warren Washington from Mission Hills, who's a 6'10 prospect.
Nice. We look forward to those articles. We look forward to hearing you. I know that another thing is when you're watching them, you tweet about it, which is always fun. It's kind of fun to follow along, and it's like we're actually there with you. We appreciate that, Mikey. Look forward to talking to you next week. We're going to be talking about either the new Chargers coach or the safeties, depending on what happens.
Hopefully Chargers coach. I like talking about coaching changes. It's the best.
It is fun. All right. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks, Mikey.
All right. See ya. Bye, Jace.
Thank you for listening to the San Diego Sports Junkies, a show for fans by the fans. Brought to you by Cali Comfort, home of the low and slow barbecue, and SK Digital Imaging with Josh Taylor, Justin Smead, Jason Eidsmoe, and Mike Maciejewski. Subscribe to us on iHeartRadio, on Spreaker, and on iTunes. Visit SanDiegoSportsJunkies.com for all your Chargers, Padres, and Aztecs news.